Hey everyone. In today's episode, Nick Mangold from our product marketing team spends time with Christian Otero, one of our product leaders, to really dive in and get a glimpse as to what's going on with our product vision, his team's day to day, and how they've evolved in the time since SharpSpring first launched. Christian has spent years working with our partners and he discusses how he brings what he's learned about their business needs, their goals, and their objectives to the table for the product team. It's a great glimpse into what makes our product great. Let's jump into it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the SharpSpring Show. I'm joined by Christian Otero, the manager of product management here at SharpSpring. And today we're going to be talking to him about what his life's like, how he got to where he is, and what he hopes to bring to you guys every day. So say hello to everyone, Christian.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on, Nick. Absolute pleasure. Really excited for what we got to talk about today.
Yeah. So just to kick us off, to tell us, what is your background like and why did you become a product manager?
Great question. So my background really starts here at SharpSpring, now currently acquired by Constant Contact. My first tech job ever was working in this, I won't call it little, but medium small startup in the heart of Gainesville. It used to be an old tire building. It was a Firestone building. And the building was set up in kind of a unique way with like two offices right next to each other. And I got started there, and my first introduction to everything was a super startup vibe, people in like bean bags and hanging out. And I immediately was like, this is the place. This is so awesome. I loved it. My first job that I got hired for was actually in a support organization. So I was doing onboarding, and which is really great because I learned how to use the platform, right? And part of my job was teaching other people how to use the platform. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn how it worked, how it functioned. Got in touch with a lot of different parts of the organization too. So our support teams, marketing teams, product teams, things like that. And from there, I eventually became the manager of that team, which was really fun. And we were trying to figure out better ways to train and provide support to new customers. And all along the way, we were learning about new products that were getting released, and how to support existing products, maybe even making recommendations for products. And from there, I think that's really where the fire started getting in me. The kind of little bit more excitement around my influence on the actual product itself. And so what I was learning in that management role was there was tons of channels of feedback coming from support, coming from my own team members, all over the place on how to improve the product. And I started to have ideas of my own. It was an awakening moment. I was like, I think we could maybe do great stuff here or there. And super humble beginnings. I definitely didn't have any moonshot ideas right out of the gate. I was like, why don't we make this button a little smoother? Why don't we move this section over here? Why don't we, things like that. And they were mainly contained within my own head until I eventually started to have more regular conversations with the product team and opened up that channel of feedback. And I remember maybe a meeting or two where we were having meetings with product managers and they were collecting the feedback from our team. And at the end of that meeting, I kind of hung around and listened to them talk a little bit about how they were going to implement the feedback, what they thought was a priority, what they didn't think was a priority, how, design struggles, things like that. And in that environment, it was just like, oh, this is it. That's definitely what I want to do. Yeah. It was so exciting thinking about how to build the next best thing. And then from there, I eventually applied for the product management position. It was all history from there, kept doing more product management stuff, building some features, got promoted to senior PM, did some work there. And now here in the Constant Contact org, I'm actually managing a team of product managers for our CRM pillar and more, encompassing SharpSpring.
That's great. Yeah. I got to be part of that journey, at some point being working in onboarding with you. And, it's great to have seen you come into the shoes that you now wear. And
Thanks,
we learn a lot by being.
Those were really great times.
Yeah, they really were. And you learn a lot being working with customers and working and seeing how they use the software. It's a great inspiration. And in fact, that brings me to kind of some of my next questions. What is your philosophy for product design and implementation? Like, where did you base that on, or is there a books that you've read, or how did you kind of get there? And um, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm not entirely sure if this is a true statement today, but when I was learning product management, there wasn't really like a college degree for product management to get produced. I
right,
think maybe that's changing. I'm not entirely sure. It's a relatively new field. Um, there was always been elements of it embedded in other teams, right? In development, in marketing, in sales. And I think as these larger tech companies grew, they realized there was this kind of gap where we needed an individual to kind of connect all the pieces. And so hopefully, I don't know, shout out to any universities listening. I think it's time we make a degree for product management. But that is to say that my journey was probably a lot like other product managers out there, which was learning on the job and as I go and trying to just consume as much product type information from all sources. So there are tons of books. I have a couple. I'll see if I can pull one down from my bookshelf here and show it off in a minute. But I think in the beginning stages, it was absolutely just listening to users, understanding how our business worked, figuring out pain points, gaps, things like that, and building a portfolio, if you will, of understanding of like where opportunities lie in our particular industry and application. So it wasn't easy at first, that's for sure. There's a lot of channels for feedback, a lot of ways for that to come in. But if I had to sum it up, a philosophy in general, I would say is the user has to absolutely come first, and there should, to your best of ability, remove the ego and bias behind what you think might be right. In my experience, almost all preconceived notions end up burning you at some point. So enter into an understanding of the user, put yourself in their shoes, and try to forget everything that you already know, and begin at lay the groundwork. Start at the simple things like, why are you frustrated? What problem are you trying to solve? What industry are you in? Things like that. And then from there, it's a lot more complicated. It gets into more detail, but things like just, understanding user testing, getting into watching people do what they do, having conversations with users is super important. But yeah, it all starts with the user for sure.
yeah. I think that's a great way of looking at it, and I can totally see how you do that in your work.
Yeah, let me pull down a couple books for you really quick. I should have done this beforehand, but
No.
shelf.
Now we get to see you reach. That's good. Yes.
Yeah. I got four recommendations, two in two different categories. So I think this is probably the best book right now on the market for any aspiring product manager, which is Inspired. I took the cover off, so there's nothing on the front here. But it's by Marty Kagan. I think he owns or is either founder of the Silicon Valley Product Group. And he's just fascinating. I consume anything that he says. All his media, his Twitter's great. He has a website, a blog. I follow it all the time. And then kind of in a similar vein, there's Melissa Perry. And she wrote a really popular book called Escaping the Build Trap. I think these two combined are a fantastic place to start for product management and philosophy and just frameworks and ways of thinking and things like that. And then I think, awesome. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say any inspiring product managers, definitely go get those books.
Yeah,
Christian,
seriously.
I trust your recommendation there.
And then these two are way more dense reads. Also recommend if you're interested on more of like the tech side, which is the Devops Handbook. Great authors. They wrote a bunch of fun kind of like novel stories it's called like the Phoenix Project and the Unicorn Project. Those are like stories that follow around characters like learning about DevOps. And then like this is the textbook version of it. It's very, very dense and frameworks and basically how to create software. And then the last one is probably more math related, but it's predictable agile metrics or actionable agile metrics. And those are, this one's really great too for probably a really big question that product managers ask themselves at some point in their career is like, am I actually producing value? So a lot of us measure ourselves based on output, not on outcomes. And finding the right metrics to measure is super important to kind of solving that problem.
Yeah, that's huge. In fact, that brings me to a really good next question is, you know, how do you work daily with the SharpSpring development team? How does your role interact? Educate some of our customers may not know what a product manager really does. So kind of help us understand that.
Yeah, I'll kind of take that question from like two lenses. One is like my day to day as manager of the team.
Hmm.
So I generally interface with more of the engineering leadership now these days. But I think it's also important to know how like the lower level teams work, because they're the ones that are actually putting together everything, right? And so I think
Right.
getting an idea of both is probably important. So I'll start with me because I think it's just top of mind. But day to day, I'm interfacing with development and engineering leadership all the time. So what we generally do is every quarter or so, we reevaluate our guiding principles and try to ensure that they're still aligned with our business strategy. And then as we have those guiding principles, we obviously trickle them down to the teams, make sure everyone else is aligned with those guiding principles. An example of a guiding principle is like, you know, a standard of quality. Like for our designs of products, we are always trying to make the easiest to use product or something like that, right? That's just a general idea, but then a product manager can take that guiding principle and ask themselves if they're aligned with that, with whatever it is that they're building or designing at the time. It's like, is this easy to use? Yes. Okay, great. I'm in line with company objectives. And so, we're trying to organize large amounts of team members moving across many projects. And so, to do that effectively, I think you need to have trust and autonomy with those teams. And so, implementing guiding principles, having regular check ins, ensuring that our strategy and guiding principles are aligned, and just talking through in general, like what kind of product do we want to be? What kind of products do we want to build in the future? Is our priority on improving them? Is our priority in, trying to capture a new piece of the market? All those things are questions that are happening every day. Are the current projects we're working on still delivering the value that we expected? Is it time to reevaluate those priorities? Are there areas that we left behind before that it's time to go back and revisit? Can we improve the quality in those areas? Larger topics like that require multiple teams to kind of make that all happen.
Right.
And so that's happening, daily, weekly with me and the engineering leadership team. But I think there's probably the more interesting part of this is the lower level teams, the lowest functional unit, cross-functional team, as we call it. And that is an arrangement of major key players from many departments. And that lowest functional unit has a product manager, a developer, a designer, a QA engineer, a support rep, multiple developers underneath the team lead to get work done. And kind of that cohesive team spans 5 or so departments, but they all work together in this cross-functional way to help deliver value, right? So their day-to-day, my opinion, way more exciting. They're the ones talking to customers. They're getting the inside scoop. They're evaluating data. They're surfacing up improvements, recommendations to stakeholders in their domains. Like these areas need improvement. These areas need, we need to completely actually overhaul this. Whatever the conversation may be, they'll build the plan and the argument, if you will, with that supporting data and both analytical, qualitative, quantitative. Maybe some quotes from a customer to help back that up, to really kind of get aligned about what to build next, what to improve. And that day to day is really where the magic happens. It's the developer, the product manager, the designer all together in a room looking at these problems, these gaps, and trying to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, it is exciting. I even get to be part of some of these conversations, and it is the fun part, for
They're the
sure. But
best.
building the philosophy is really important too. I think in marketing we have a similar concept of brand philosophy and how we approach things, and we have to ask ourselves, is this meeting that philosophy? And it's huge. It's how you kind of keep each of those levels aligned.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. So what are some of the coming features you can tell us about? Sneak peeks behind the curtain here. What are some things that we can expect in the next, this year?
This is what's everybody's really tuning in for, huh?
Right, exactly. I just warmed
So
you up.
if you've ever worked with a product manager or product team before, you know that we're always very tight-lipped and very ambiguous about what and when we're delivering something. I'll do my best to adhere to those things. But I can say this: we have a lot in the works around how our users are going to use SharpSpring in the future. A few things that I can talk about that are bigger projects is we are right now in development. We are working on improving CRM functionality in our core app to be focused more on account-based interactions. We find a lot of our users, specifically sales teams in the B2B space, that we're lacking, that there's a gap there that they need. There is an overarching idea of, yes, we're interacting with individual leads, but we also need to have this whole idea and concept of an account or a company that we're following through a sales process. So there's going to be a lot of improvements around those areas. Stay tuned. Maybe an email or newsletter might be coming out in the next month or so. Who knows? So that's one area. I think another area that's going to bolster that area or bolster account-based marketing as well is going to be improved sales reporting in general. Again, this is coming from feedback from our sales users, mainly in the B2B space, some in the B2C space. But we need a little bit more in-depth reporting for our sales users, not only at the salesperson level, but we also want to get their managers involved as well. Sort of a way to hold those sales teams accountable, check and ensure that the teams are meeting the goals and metrics that manager may have put in place. And so what we're going to be doing is focusing a lot more on building out, kind of using the custom reporting framework that we currently have, building out many more widgets to support those kind of use cases and daily use from those sales teams. Really trying with those two projects in mind. There's a little bit of overlap. We're really trying to enable these sales users and feel comfortable where they can do and manage most, if not all, of their day, leveraging the meetings feature, sales dialer, the pipeline, running these reports and ensuring that sales teams are being as effective as they can, and that we're using SharpSpring's tools to enable them to get their day done or their job done.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you guys come up with these concepts? Was it like a sharp idea? For those of you who don't know, we have a area for our customers that can upvote certain ideas. Check it out. Was it like a personal vision, or is it a company-led kind of direction that we've been going?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So the approach for these was really fun, and there was a bit of a unique experience, I think, that really helped us land on them. Decided that those were the right things to go after. And so first, like I was saying before, we always start with the user, right? We do have our user voice forum. You can go to Sharp Ideas and check that out. That way you can listen to the voice of the customer. Shout out there. If you're not in there, definitely get in there. Recommend a product recommendation. If you like something, upvote it, drop a comment. That forum is invaluable to product managers. We love it. So definitely get in there and check it out. We definitely we took a look at survey of everything that we had in the works. So quick shout out to some things that are getting released currently that came from the Sharp Ideas forum. Conditional form fields is out there right now. And then also the yes-no branching for automation workflows. I believe that's in beta right now as well. So we're getting some beta testing, right, which is great. So those were both very highly rated, and we wanted to listen to our users. So because again, that's where it all starts. So yeah, we took data from there, and then we started to. There are immediate indicators, right? Like someone can raise their hand and say, "I want this thing," and that's great. There's also a lot of data and kind of subjective analysis that happens too. Sometimes we get feedback paraphrased or channeled through support in a way that's fantastic. So if someone's calling into support, generally it's for help on something. And so we can go look at where particular users are struggling and take an analysis of like, we got these many support requests in this area about this thing, right? And that can also be a piece of supporting data that helps us make decisions around, what's a priority and what's not. Additionally, we look to internal teams too. We love to get, our own, eat our own dog food, if you will. And so a lot of SharpSpring employees and Constant Contact employees use the application, so we can get them to give us some feedback as well. And so the unique part of this that I thought was super interesting is that at a team level, at a domain level, we had the teams go and investigate like they do every day and try to surface up areas that were important to us. And so particularly around this account work and the improved sales reporting work, those teams individually surface that up to me and stakeholders and saying, hey, I think this is important. We should spend some time and priority here. We went and independently checked and validated what our own sales team was doing in the application and found that they were also having similar struggles and gaps and had similar feedback. So it was really fun to kind of independently get two streams of feedback that lined up together like that. And that's, sometimes you get things like that and it's perfect and that, yes, this is a thing we should work on. Sometimes you don't, it's a little bit harder. So really nice to know that we got multiple streams of feedback coming in that validated those choices. But yeah, it's all about, if I taking a step back and talking about philosophy, it's always starting with the user, validating understanding their problems, understanding the gaps, understanding where they're struggling, understanding what we're not providing to them, and just trying to make it better, right? Having conversations with users, getting in there, testing, all that great stuff.
Yeah. Working inside the SharpSpring interface for ourselves has been a huge help. Especially working with customers, I can be like, hey, I know that how you work with this. I know how this works. And, I love that we can shine a light on our own needs as well as our customers. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. You brought up actually the yes/no branches and the fact that they're in beta. How do you determine what features should be in beta and what do you hope to learn from joining the beta group? And, maybe you want to give a shout out to the beta group for some of our customers who aren't in it yet.
Yeah, certainly do. So let's start with that. Big shout out to the beta group. Anyone who is currently in the beta group, thank you so much. Your qualitative and quantitative feedback is so helpful in molding products. We are a SaaS company, so we release things in iterations. The first one, maybe isn't the best version that it could be. So we send it out there to the beta group, understand where we need to improve, understand where the value is, and refine, right? And keep refining until we get to a place where that product is great and it is delighting our customers. And at that point, that's when we want to release it to the general population, and all this marketing content and let the world know, right? So big shout out to the beta group. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the feedback you've given to us over the years. Fantastic. On the flip side, we'd like more. So feedback is our fuel. So please, if you're anyone out there, if you're interested in joining the beta group, please, you can go ahead. I think the easiest way for you is to just submit a support ticket in the general category and say, hey, I'd like to join the beta group. And we'll go ahead and add you to it as soon as we can. So that would be great.
Yeah.
The beta group is a process by which we collect feedback, right? So as we're developing these products, they are released in iterations. And when we get to a certain point that we feel is viable, maybe you've heard the term MVP, minimal viable product. Yeah. We want to get that in front of customers as soon as possible, right? We want them to start poking holes, telling us where the gaps are, telling us where there's opportunities to improve, letting us know both qualitative and quantitative. I can't stress that enough. Like the user behavior is so important as well. Like understanding where people are falling off in a new flow or a feature is very, very helpful. So it's all about collecting feedback. And what we generally do in deciding which features go to beta and which don't is if we're improving anything or if there's some net new functionality, that's almost absolutely going into beta. It could be small, it could be medium, it could be huge. But the ability to get feedback on anything that you release is just, it's part of the gig. We absolutely need it before it goes out into, general population, if you will. So we're generally anything, again, that's net new, doesn't matter, small, medium, large, probably going into beta. Improvements, those things, unless they're extremely small, like, we've modified some text or moved a button around, like those probably won't make it into beta. We feel confident in releasing those things. But if we're changing functionality or in hopes to improving an experience, like we need to measure the experience change delta between, where we were previously and where we are now with whatever was released in the beta.
That makes sense. Well, you've told us a lot, but I want to throw you a fun question. What's your favorite SharpSpring feature you've worked on and why? What is your baby,
Oh man, there's so many. I think two come to mind, and maybe not for reasons people would expect, or maybe they do. I don't know. But I think the first one was my first biggest release. It's really in my memory from a few years back. It was probably the project that I owned from truly beginning to end, and that was the multi-column functionality for forms. And that was really exciting for us, mainly because we did that in conjunction with the visual form styler, and those were two projects that I got to do back to back, in tandem very closely, and it was so exciting. So a lot of unique user experience problems and questions in there that we had to work through. There was a lot of testing, both in the beta and also through just bringing users into a room and watching them use the actual feature. And that was just a blast. I think that was a milestone just in my personal career, having taken an idea from, hey, users are asking for this. I think it's a great idea. Our form tool, isn't the best it could be in this competitive landscape, and it's sometimes it's tough, right? Because we're a multifaceted tool, and there are other tools out there that do something very specifically. Our power and our value comes from how everything is integrated in between all of those features. And so it's so exciting to have that aha moment of like, not only can we try and create a best in class form editing tool, but we can understand how that form tool will connect to every other feature in the platform. And that's just super exciting, right? So that was super fun. We, again, just really creative UX problems, dragging and dropping on this canvas, applying styles, showing a preview of the form, having to submit the form, things like that. All that was really, really fun. And maybe a bit of a selfish answer, if I will, for my first because I certainly had a blast building that. So thanks. Second one is, and I can't take almost any of the credit for this. In my transition from product manager to senior product manager, I was beginning to write out specifications for our Instagram integration. And so that was, I got to just barely start that. And shout out to Jim Snell. He was the one who actually completed that, crossed that over the finish line. He gets all the credit, 100%. But I was just happy to be involved with, at the time, the number one customer request. Like that there is no better feeling as a product manager to know that you are working on the number one most important thing that you can at that time. And I was so inspired, and it hurt to let that one go as I moved on to other projects, but it was absolutely necessary. And again, shout out to Jim. He absolutely crushed it and took that to the finish line. So that felt great. That was an amazing project to even just be involved with, because again, it was at the time number one most requested feature. Customers had been asking for it for years. There was a whole backstory and history of how there's these APIs for Instagram that were on lockdown, and we were trying to get into their beta to get the API sooner for our customers, and we really wanted to do that. And then another debacle with their APIs. It was just a whole whirlwind, and it was really, really fun. So I'm happy we got that out the door. And again, just absolute pleasure to release the number one most requested feature.
Yeah, and I remember going through a lot of that process, so it's a lot of fun there. Final question really that I have for you, and this is another hopefully fun one. What's one thing you've learned about the SharpSpring software you think customers should know, like a tip, trick, whatever it is,
That's another really great question. I have one fun one that comes to mind. It's a small one, but I think it'll change people's lives if you don't know about it. It's almost an Easter egg, if you will. I don't think there may be I may be wrong about that. There may be documentation about this somewhere, but on the dashboard, if you're in the contact manager, I think any page actually supports this.
Yeah.
We have global search functionality where you can click the search bar at the top right of the navigation. It'll pop that up. But what you didn't know is that there's actually a keyboard shortcut for you to pull up that global search. And it's a very strange key command. It's semicolon, semicolon. So you have to hit semicolon twice, maybe within a second. I don't know what the actual time is on it, but if you hit semicolon twice, it'll pull up that global search. Your hands don't have to leave the keyboard. You just keep typing and you'll do a global search for basically any object or asset within your account. And you can just snap there really quick. I love that feature. It's great. And I also love that for some reason, I have no idea when we coded it, when we built it, but there is a shortcut to open it. So it's great. It's great.
Well, I know our keyboard shortcut fans are going to love that. I'm one of those people. So that's a good one. Mm-hmm. Well, Christian, I want to thank you for coming out. This has been a lot of fun, and it's been really great just getting to hear your story and learn about the product through your eyes. I appreciate you coming out and look forward to hearing from you again. Do you have anything you want to say to everyone before we sign off?
Yeah, sure. First, Nick, it was an absolute pleasure. I love it. Our time in the onboarding team. It's really great to get back and working with you in this fashion. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And then, to everyone out there, thank you so much to all the customers. We really, really appreciate all the feedback you give us in the product department. And we're passionate about trying to build the best product that we can to solve your problems. So thank you so much. And I'll catch you next time.
All right, everyone. Have a good day.